So looking across all these different stages, everything from awareness, initial consideration through to purchase and then bonding, all of these different things are going to have slightly different types of messages you might be trying to get across, right? And it's important to go through and think about what are your different goals as a marketer at each of these different stages. So we can add another column here, and we can go across in this row, and we can take a look at what exactly it is you're trying to do as a marketer at each of these different stages. So the first one, awareness, initial consideration. Obviously, you want to go through and get awareness. That's one of your potential things that you're trying to get as a goal. What else might you be trying to do at this particular stage? Well, you're also trying to attract attention as well. Especially when you look at social media, where people really only look at things for about, a second or two, being able to go through and get people's attention is really important. Importantly, you also want to translate that attention into some sort of memory for your particular product or brand, right? You want people to recall having seen there's a new car from your company that just come out. And you want people to also remember that TV ad they saw yesterday. So when they see another ad for it, or when they drive by the dealership, they're going to be excited enough to want to learn more. So we think about recall as another measure. And there could be other ones as well too that you might go through and think about as different objectives you might have at this particular stage. Here it's about necessarily, getting people to learn about you, awareness, thinking about, getting people to actually look at your ad, right? And then going through and obviously remembering the fact that they even saw your ad or that your company even exists, especially if it's a brand new one. One of the more important things to keep in mind is how will you actually go through and measure whether or not you've achieved any of these different objectives. So things like awareness and recall are going to be easier to go through and actually measure if you have something like Facebook that has a built-in tool to go through and survey consumers about seeing an ad or remembering a particular company exists. Likewise, if you're going through and taking a look at attracting attention, you could go through and run eye tracking studies to see if your ad actually calls out consumers' eyes and gets them to look at something. But you could also simply go through and look at measures like engagement. If you look in detail at engagement on Facebook, yes, it is stuff like commenting and liking, but it also includes things like zooming in on photos, going through photos in a carousel, and actually like clicking on photos and taking a look at videos and things like that. So look in more detail at the engagement metrics and see if you can use some of those as a way to actually indirectly get at a measure of attention. Next up, let's think about an evaluation ad. What is it you're trying to do if you're running an ad for evaluation? Let's imagine we've got a consumer, we've already attracted their attention, they're excited about potentially buying a certain car, or at least intrigued enough to want to find out more. Imagine we run more ads to try to get them to think about, in more detail or further, buying that car. What would we want them to go through and do at this particular stage? Well, if we're at evaluation, we probably want them to learn more about a particular product. So maybe it's engagement. Maybe it's going through and getting video views. Maybe we have a nice detailed video talking about a new car and how wonderful it is, and we want them to watch all 2 minutes of it and become excited. Maybe it's going through and requesting information. Could also be going through and clicking to the website. Maybe you're running ads to get people to go through and actually, click through to your dealer website and configure a car, right? That could be one metric you look at as well too. Anything related to consumers learning more about your particular product or service would qualify. It could also be going through and perhaps following your account, so they can find out more information and learn more as you go through and post more, about an upcoming car, for instance. The next stage is my favorite stage, actual purchase, because you make money. At the purchase stage, what would you look at as an objective if you were an advertiser? Well, big one's obviously going to be going through and converting or buying. So conversions would be super important. Think about how you'd go through and measure this. If you're using a pixel on Facebook, it makes it super easy. You can basically just tell if the information goes right through to Ad Manager. You can tell which ads are driving which conversions and what creative's working and what's not. If it's an in-person place like a dealership, right, you might actually have to get data from taking a look at the dealership to see how many of your leads translated into sales. So perhaps you're going to go through and measure leads if you can't get that information very easily. You might just know that so many people booked an appointment to come for a test drive, or so many people booked an appointment to come and talk to a salesperson, right? So looking at other metrics to get as close as possible to sales are really important. In some cases, you're going to be going through and you can take a look at coupon redemptions. This is really valuable if you're looking at a client that doesn't have a really good way of being able to track how your ads on Facebook relate to sales. So if they sell in a physical store, if you have a unique coupon code that you only put up on your Facebook ad, every time that's redeemed, you know it's related somehow back to that particular ad you ran. So conversions, leads, coupon redemptions, any sort of way you might have of tracking of the sales of a particular product you're advertising is going to be very valuable for you to know if your ads at this particular stage are actually effective. The next stage is kind of a strange one, consume, but it refers to helping consumers have a positive experience when they're actually using that product or service. So if you've just bought a car, what are some things you might actually want help going through and learning about? Well, one could be putting your new Jeep, for instance, into 4x4. If you don't know how to put it in 4x4, you're definitely not going to go and take it off-road. Another one could be going through and syncing up your phone and learning how to get CarPlay or Android Auto, things like that set up so you have a good time with that. It could also be going through and learning about the different features of the car as well too. All of these different things are going to be really important for you as somebody's on that car because you want consumers to actually use the features. If they don't use the features, they're not going to be as happy and they're not going to come back and buy again. So, what are some of the metrics we could look at in terms of objectives that we're trying to achieve at this particular stage? One, it could be satisfaction. Another metric you can use to judge how well consumers are consuming your product is returns. If people don't like something, they're going to take it back. Whether it's a drone that almost kills them, like what happened to me, right? Or perhaps you not using your particular gym membership or not using features of your car. If people are returning things because they're not using them or not happy with them, that's a good measure that they're not enjoying the consumption experience. So you can go through and take a look at returns to measure how well people are actually satisfied with the particular product they have. Another really good metric to take a look at is ratings. Whether you're a restaurant looking at your review on Yelp or you're a hotel on TripAdvisor, ratings can be a really nice window into how people are enjoying their consumption experience. So after taking a look at these different objectives we have at consumption, trying to get high satisfaction and low returns, right, we can go through and take a look next at advocacy. The whole goal of advocacy is trying to get consumers to tell all of their friends and family about the great experience they've had with your particular product or service. So pretty obvious here, the whole goal is to get word of mouth. So word of mouth is a big goal. When we go on social media, there are a ton of different ways to express word of mouth. It could be going through and just creating a post, whether it's a photo or a video on YouTube or a video you put up on Instagram or a story, right? Any sort of creation of content is going to be some form of word of mouth. It could also be going through and it could be retweeting or it could be sharing something that already exists, maybe something you've already gone through and posted. Any of these different behaviors are going to spread your content to more people in that consumer sphere. What you'll notice is that word of mouth is a difficult thing to get people to go through and do. As it becomes more and more effortful for consumers, liking is very easy, creating a comment is more difficult, going through and sharing something is putting more of your personal self at risk, right? And creating a video or something for YouTube, obviously a lot of work and effort. As the effort goes up, the likelihood of consumers going through and doing that goes down. So you want to think about different ways you can try and incentivize or make consumers more likely to go through and spread that word of mouth online about your business. The key reason for that is the fact that you save money the more people go through and spread word of mouth. Every impression you get from that is money that you're not spending on advertising. The final stage of this journey is going to be bond. Basically having consumers have a really strong positive feeling toward your company and its products so they'll come back and buy again. This can be something that's really kind of cool to go through and measure by taking a look at repeat business. Repeat business is really neat because you can tell if consumers actually liked your product enough to want to buy it again. The challenge is for some products that are durable like cars, people might not come back and buy again for several years. So it's a very leggy measure. You also can go through and take a look at other stuff such as likes, and you can see how many likes a post is getting. You could think about how much word of mouth you're getting as well too, as a measure of how much consumers, actually feel positive affinity toward your company. It could also be different reactions people give, like smiley faces or hearts and things like that you might get on social media. And you could also go through and you could take a look at the tone of comments and things like that as well too. So that's a quick overview of all of the different journey stages involved in a consumer's first learning about your product, all the way through to purchase, and then thinking about the effects afterwards, like bonding and spreading word of mouth. These are just sort of a smattering of some of the different possible things you might be focusing on as objectives at these different stages. There could be other ones as well too. But the key thing I want you to go through and think about when it comes to looking at each of these different stages is, how will you measure your objectives? This is a really important question. If you can't measure the objective of your particular ad, it becomes really challenging for you to show that your ad is working or isn't working. So the key thing to keep thinking about in the back of your mind is, how will I go through and measure this? If we take a look at these different objectives, all the ones that directly relate to things you can see in Facebook Ad Manager are things that will make your life a lot easier to focus on. So if you're using a pixel, conversions are super easy to measure, right? Likes are also super easy to measure. Repeat business can be challenging, right? Going through and measuring returns can also be super challenging, right? Looking at recall if you're using a brand awareness ad, not so bad, right? Video views, also very evident and very easy to go through and track. So think about how easy each of these different objectives is to go through and measure, and keep that in mind as you're developing the ones that you want to focus on at each different journey stage.